We just explored a lawless zone in the wilderness. But what if the law changed while you were walking to pick up a book? Welcome to the world's most divided library. There is a building in Vermont where you can stand in two countries simultaneously. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally, physically, legally in two nations at once. 1 foot in the United States, 1 foot in Canada. Nobody is arresting you. The librarian will simply smile and ask if you need help finding something. This is Darby Line, Vermont. Population just under 800, quiet and unremarkable from the outside, except the international border cuts directly through the middle of town, not just through streets or yards, through buildings, through a library so old and strange that Homeland Security still doesn't quite know what to do with it. There is a line on the carpet, a thin black stripe. Cross it one way, you're American. Cross it the other, you're suddenly a foreign national, no ceremony required. To understand why, go back to 1842. The Webster-Ashburton Treaty drew the U.S.-Canada border with the precision of a man guessing in the dark. Surveyors used the 45th parallel as their guide. Sounds clean, except early measurements were slightly off, and by the time anyone noticed, towns had already been built on the mistakes. Darby Line and its Canadian twin, Stansted, Quebec, grew up together, shared families, shared churches, shared roads. The border existed on paper, but daily life treated it like a suggestion. By the late 1800s, the two communities decided to build something together, something that would serve both towns, something sitting exactly, deliberately, on the line. In 1904, the Haskell Free Library and Opera House opened, funded by Martha Stewart Haskell, a Canadian woman whose late husband was American. She built it intentionally for both peoples. The front entrance was American, the books mostly on the American side. The stage where performers would sing and act, technically foreign soil for the American audience watching from below. Martha Haskell's vision was almost radical. Knowledge belongs to everyone. A line on a map should not determine who gets access to culture. The community embraced it completely for decades. Here is where the daily absurdity begins. Walk up to the Haskell today and notice something immediately odd. The entrance opens onto Caswell Avenue. That is an American street. If you are Canadian and live 50 feet away in Stansted, using that front door means entering the United States without a checkpoint. That is a federal crime for a library visit. So Canadian residents must drive to the official crossing, clear customs, re-enter the U.S., drive back around, and park on the American side, just to borrow a book. Imagine returning a book and accidentally getting deported. Comment below, would you risk crossing the line for a late fee? Inside, staff navigate this quietly every day. They know which patrons crossed legally. They know which regulars technically entered the wrong country to reach the circulation desk. Everyone pretends not to notice. The black line on the floor is not subtle. It runs straight across the reading room, bisecting tables, cutting between chairs, dividing the space with bureaucratic bluntness. Children on school trips are told to straddle it. 1 foot in America, 1 in Canada. They laugh and jump back and forth, having no idea they are repeatedly crossing an international border. The Opera House upstairs is its own category of strange. The audience sits in the United States. The performers sing and act on a stage located entirely in Quebec, Canada. When a performer takes a bow, they bow in one country. The applause comes from another. A standing ovation technically crosses an international boundary with every pair of rising hands. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, you might find an elderly American woman reading by the window, unknowingly seated in Canadian territory. She just moved her chair slightly for better light. That chair is now 3 feet deeper into Quebec. She declared no goods. She presented no passport. She just wanted to read in peace and accidentally immigrated. Then came September 11th, 2001. And everything that had been quietly, beautifully absurd became a national security problem. The federal government looked at Darby Line and saw a vulnerability, not a community. Within months, plans were drawn, fences, checkpoints, cameras. The open streets connecting Darby Line and Stansted for generations would be physically separated. The government called it necessary. Locals called it devastating. Bollards went up on shared streets. Some roads were closed entirely. The The casual daily movement that had defined this community for over a century was reclassified as a security breach. If you think international borders inside a library are the peak of human absurdity, smash that like button right now. But the Haskell presented a unique problem. Closing it would require significant political will. It had been open 100 years. It was a historic landmark. People genuinely loved it. Border Patrol installed a camera directly across from the library's entrance. An agent is stationed nearby during open hours. The camera watches. The agent watches. The librarians keep recommending novels. Officials describe the Haskell as operating under informal diplomatic tolerance, not a legal exemption, not a formal treaty, just a mutual agreement to look slightly sideways at a beloved community institution. Long-term staff describe the shift with weary sadness. Before 2001, no one thought twice about the line. After 2001, everyone thought twice about everything. The building hadn't changed. The fear around it had. Today, the Haskell occupies strange middle ground. Beloved, protected, watched, monitored, celebrated, and quietly suspicious, all at once. A community treasure that also happens to be a federal gray area. Think about what it does to a person's mind to live in a divided house. People in Darby line literally go to bed in one country and wake up in another. Psychologists who study border communities describe jurisdictional dissonance. Your legal identity shifts depending on which room you stand in. Your rights and responsibilities quietly change with your footsteps. Visitors experience a strange psychological vertigo standing on that line. The border is invisible yet overwhelming. Your identity suddenly feels constructed, fragile, and bureaucratic all at once. That is what the Haskell ultimately reveals about all borders. They are not natural features. They are decisions. Lines drawn on paper, enforced by uniforms, obeyed by everyone else out of habit. Martha Haskell understood this in 1904. She funded a building that would refuse to honor the line completely. She didn't erase the border. She decided it wouldn't determine who deserved access to books. That idea has survived 2 world wars, the Cold War, 9/11, and a century of tightening immigration policy. A library on a carpet line, still open, still lending, still slightly illegal. We find the glitches in reality that governments try to ignore. Subscribe to stay on the right side of the line. The Haskell is still open Tuesday through Saturday. You can browse stacks that cross an international border and check out a book. The librarian will stamp your due date. No passport required, just a library card. And a quiet appreciation for someone who decided a long time ago that a line on the floor was no reason to keep anyone from reading.